This is a long video, everyone. We're so glad to be with you. We're going to talk a lot about mental illness and mental health. And we're going to give you ways to work your way out. We have these scriptures to back some of these things up. We are not judging you or telling you you're bad for what you're doing. But we believe today God is going to use this to get you to dust off your little knees, get yourself out of your bed, and get living with a purposeful life. We're going to talk about your meeting with your counselor, doctors, and therapists to wean yourself off of medication. We are not looking down upon you because you're medicating your way through those things. We want you to have an encounter, a divine encounter with your creator, God, to see you be not lukewarm, but hot for God. And we're going to use a great story from a man named Elijah to set this all up. This is a long one, so you might need to watch this in parts. Is that a safe way to start this with Lily?
Love it. We can't wait to be with you for an
along
awesome
this
talk.
journey.
Yeah.
And we have Holly in here, and we're gonna kick it off right after this with a short video from my father-in-law, Collins. He's a great saxophone player. He passed away a little over a week ago, but I had an opportunity to film a video with him that changed my life to be a part of it. He asked me to record a song called Pick Up the Pieces. And in that, I had no idea I was filming something that would be shown at his celebration of life and being able to further the kingdom of God through his message. To make a video longer, we're going to use this video as the start. This is Collins Brewer, who passed away from brain cancer a little over a week ago. My best friend, my father-in-law, my mentor, my leader, Holly's dad. We love this man. He's a great man. He's inspired so many of us on this YouTube channel. We play this, we kick off today in a way to honor him with some great words at the end of him playing Pick Up the Pieces, everybody. It's going to be a great day. Let's celebrate an amazing life that Collins had for 77 years. Yeah. Enjoy this video.
the pieces.
All right.
Hey, Collins Brewer here. That was a real thrill for me to record that song here at the Executive Condo Ballroom with my good friend Paulie, who's a professional musician. I mean, he's really a professional musician. And I started practicing that song about 2 months ago. Paulie walks in and does it in a take, or two, I think. That song, Pick Up the Pieces, was done in 1974 by the Average White Band. You imagine trying to make it as a band by the name of Average White Band today? But I like those old tunes. That title, Pick Up the Pieces, just reminded me of how shattered it seems that our world is today and how divided. And if you watched the last video, I talked a little bit about that, coming back together. But, I ponder that. Why are things so divided? Why is the situation, why does it seem so critical? And being a follower of Jesus, of course, I kind of try to go back to the scriptures and find out. And, it seems like ever since the Garden of Eden, man has been trying to pick up the pieces from what he broke. And it's gone all the way up through Noah and the ark and the Tower of Babel and on and on and on. And I'm asking myself, what is the cause of all this? Well, I think it's because there's evil versus good, and that we're in a supernatural war. And we live in a world that we don't always understand the forces that we're dealing with. And really, I think they're forces in what I would call an unseen realm, or a spiritual world, that are trying to vie and take over what God has intended. So what I'd like you to ponder with me is, how do we deal with that? What do we do to change that? My suggestion is this. Follow Jesus. Find out what the gospel of the kingdom means, and then make a decision. Ponder it. Choose. And then live out that choice. I've chosen to live for the good side of things that's against evil. My goal is to live out the gospel of the kingdom, to love my neighbor, love God, and make a positive effect on those around me. And that song was just so much fun to play, but the meaning for me was even more than that. So I'm hoping that you enjoyed it and that you'll tune back in to the next Ponder.
Happy Sunday, everybody. We say happy Sunday because this goes live on Sunday. We know you could be watching at a different time. Hey, we're so glad to have you. My name is Scott Mendenhall. It's a beautiful day here in Minnesota. The snow is gone. Sun is shining. It is a wonderful day. I'm joined with some of my favorite people in the world. Absolutely unarguable. Some of the coolest people. I wish I could be like them. We're going to start with my lovely wife, who is celebrating St. Patrick's Day. How are you doing, babe?
Yeah, it's tomorrow, technically.
Okay, I'm doing fantastic.
Did you not know that?
I did. I do not look at this and think St. Patty's Day.
Oh, I'm ready for baseball season. I got the Cardinal hat on.
So.
Let's go. Let's go. The Cards. Let's bring home the World Series. And then we got Lily, who has no idea who the Cardinals are, what sport they are. How are we doing, Lily?
I do know.
She
They're
does
baseball.
too.
Baseball. Oh, I like how you guys.
They're probably doing training camps right now all over the
Yeah, look at
country.
you.
Where do they do training camps at?
Hold on. Whoa. You already sound a little crazy, ladies, because you're calling it training camp.
Yeah, what is it? Training.
What is it, ladies? You are a former baseball player, softball player. Get it
It
right.
is something.
It is. It is not. It is not. Oh my goodness.
Is training camp for football?
I do think the name is cool, but
Spring
training.
Thank you. My goodness.
It's not that cool.
I'm not even that
That's not
great
that
of a
cool.
football
Training
or a
camp sounds
baseball fan, but at least I know these things.
So,
No,
but don't they do spring? Each team does spring training different places, or is it all?
Yeah, that's right. All over the place. So this is the time of year.
So our friends from church just went to Arizona to watch the Cubs spring training. Where do the Cardinals do it?
Cardinals are down in Jupiter in Florida.
Oh, in Florida. Cool.
Yeah. There you have it, close to where we moved from to here.
Awesome.
So today we're in a series that's been really fun. At least for us, it has been fun to take Sunday school lessons and grow them up. Because the problem is we got a lot of people deconstructing their Christian faith because their Sunday school lessons are little and they're not growing up to adult faith because they're rooted in great principles and great thinking, but given to you at a consumable age that you can understand them. But if you don't grow them up and you're still relying on the David and Goliath story that you were told in Sunday school on a flannel graph, or I know some of you watching this deconstructing your faith, you've never seen a flannel graph. But you've got to grow up your faith. The issue is that you're trying to walk through adult things in life using childlike Sunday school lessons to apply. And it just doesn't work because we were taught, and it's not wrong, but it's Sunday school lessons, we're taught that all of the heroes of the Bible were flawless, perfect lives, never had mental illness, never were depressed, were never flawed, never questioned God. And that's so far from the truth. And so today we have a doozy for you. If you need a little bit of a hack to know who we're talking about, we have two guys that sound very similar. You have Elijah and Elisha. There's just a separation of one letter, really. It sounds like it, a J and an S. Elijah becomes before Elisha, and we're talking about Elisha today. Because that guy is a hot mess most of the time, but did some profound things, like things that you and I would, as little people, go, woo, what faith he has. But then you find out that the dude struggles with a lot of mental illnesses. Now, he wouldn't have called it that, right, Lil?
No.
He wouldn't have.
I don't know what he would have called it, but it wouldn't have been mental health.
Yeah, because that's a new thing, right? It's been a thing forever. People have dealt with this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just been newly labeled, and so... Don't get me started on that, but we're excited about it. You want to, once in a while we like to have a moment around here, Holly, you are aware of this, explain that thing, okay? And so today we're coming to you with Lil, explain that thing.
Explain what thing?
Your shirt.
Oh.
Why?
Explain that thing.
Well, if we could just...
I'm wearing the shirt because it fits all right.
Yeah, but it's got a cowboy.
For those of, I'm growing the child.
Dead.
Cowboy.
What is this? Is this some mental illness?
No, this is who I thought you were going to have me teach on because I had got the E name wrong. I thought you were going to ask me to teach on Ezekiel, but we're talking about Elijah today. But this says it's the Ezekiel verse, dry bones come alive.
Oh, yeah, but no one can see with the
dry
microphone
bones.
there. Oh, yeah, okay.
I got it at a women's
But
conference.
is it? Oh, but it does. I do see Ezekiel. Okay.
Yeah, the verse is
the
very
reference.
bottom.
Okay, fair enough. Because it doesn't. That is not.
Explain your shirt.
Explain my shirt. It's just a Vans shirt with some
Is that Braille? Well, it
Yeah.
can't be Braille because you can't feel it. But is that what it's supposed to be?
It'd be weird if people came up and go, "Let me feel your." No, it's not
don't
Braille.
think
It's
so.
just.
What is it?
It's
Just a cool.
It's just image in the corner.
Cool.
Just like Holly's got St. Patrick going on. We're good to go today, everybody. Lily is going to take, for the most part, this topic, okay? And so we're excited to be able to have Lily speak it, teach it, and we get to be the hecklers like she typically is for
I
me.
am not a heckler.
You're a heckler?
I'm just reminding myself I've done this before with you in the room.
And what happened? You did great.
It always turns out fine.
She's super nervous today, everybody. She is nervous.
A little nervous.
nervous.
But I want to do well, and I want, not just for you, Scott, but for God,
Well, full disclosure, typically when we say, Lily, will you speak? She can speak on anything that's on her heart. This time, because again, you're trying to always train up those behind you, I wanted to give a thought that she needed to run with to just be able to sharpen her skills as a communicator and a studier. So I gave her a story of the life of Elisha, which is
Elijah.
We're talking about. You said that earlier. We're talking about Elijah.
Well, why didn't you correct me then?
Well, because
you did it
now
right.
my brain's got a pathway going, guys.
Oh, you did it right earlier.
Holly's saying I didn't. See, it's so hard.
But the
it's
J,
Elijah.
yeah,
We're talking about the first guy, not the second guy.
exactly.
There you go. That's all
J
you need to
before
know,
S.
everybody. Okay, it's a great story. It's one that I remember learning on a flannel graph. And so we're going to walk through it. But Lily's she didn't really know the story, right?
Yeah, I know I've read it because I've done the whole Bible in a year. But when you do the whole Bible in a year, you really breeze through these things. And getting to really stay on this story and the one after, it's been so cool. So I'll never forget it now.
The main character right here.
Thank you.
This is not what he actually looked like. If we can go to the close-up whenever we put these. This is not exactly what he looked like, but it's a good idea. Here's Elijah,
good
everybody.
beard.
He is ready for St. Patty's Day right
Yeah,
now.
he is, man.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Straight up. You know what I wonder? This is full disclosure when I look at these guys or I watch The Chosen or The House of David. I want to, if I wore this, would I wear underwear underneath? That's what I always think. Or is it really drafty? That's what I really think.
I'm not going to take any guesses.
Is David running around killing lions and stuff? And I was like, he's got to be drafty.
Oh my
Did they have
gosh.
is that what a linen ephod is? They had that underneath this thing? Or is it just
You thought
straight?
that they were on top.
I have
It's just blown
full
in there.
disclosure. I have never.
I've
thought
never
that before.
wondered
That's
that.
because you ladies wear dresses and stuff.
Because you guys you're dudes.
Yeah, so that's full disclosure, me being
Someday
transparent.
you can ask if you're really that
I'm
concerned.
not gonna. I'm pretty
in
sure when I
heaven.
get to heaven, that's not a top 10
Yeah, I don't
question.
think so either.
It's not up there. It's just what I thought. Okay, let's break down really quick. I'm gonna help you, Lily.
Love it. I'll
Okay.
take the help.
Okay,
It makes
so-
me feel calmer.
Elijah. Here he is again, close up. Every time I say this, quick on the switcher so people get it. Boom. We need like this. Boom. Because this guy was a prophet. Okay, back to me. Now back to him. Now back to me. Back to him.
There you go. Getting better.
Okay.
That's
So
good.
he's a prophet. A prophet is somebody that was a middleman between God and his people, the Israelites. Okay. So God would communicate to Elijah, and then Elijah would say what God said. You pick up in the book of Judges, if you're reading through your Bible in the same reading plan we are on, you're in Judges, and you are now introduced to these judges, the prophets that are speaking on God's behalf. You get to 1st and 2nd Samuel, and you are then seeing where Samuel is the last prophet. Well, at least it seemed that way because kings were coming into the picture. If you're watching the House of David, I don't know your take on it. Write in the chat. What are your thoughts of the House of David? We've been watching it. It's a great foretelling of the story of David with a lot of little sprinkles in there of creativity.
Sprinkles is a good word.
You just to move a story along because, when you read through the Bible, you go from one thing to the next. There's no like journey to. It's just, you don't even know the time period of what happened. You just read the next story. So to make a movie, you got to add and sprinkle in some things. But when you watch that, they refer to Samuel, guy with white beard, as a seeker. That is their way of explaining a prophet or a seer.
Seer.
Okay.
A seer. They call him a seer. They can see the future.
Sure.
A prophet is someone that communicates on God's behalf to a group of people. The question you're going to ask yourself at this very, very moment is, are there prophets still today? The answer is yes. The reason we don't see that as much in Western culture is that we push a lot of those things away as made up in Hollywood, not real life spiritual things. If you want to see these things in your life, you need to pursue those things and make sure you're pursuing it for the right reason, not just for
Not just to
power,
do it.
not to just do it. That's
Yeah.
the danger in it, is you begin to worship those things versus worship God. So you got to understand this in this story today, that he is a prophet. He is a judge of the Israelites, a voice of God to his people. Moses would have been a prophet, just didn't have that title yet, but it's one man that spoke on God's behalf. Now, the question you're going to have is, has there ever been a woman prophet? Is this only a man's role? We're going to leave that to Lily. Lily, in your research of women in ministry and things, you've ever come across a prophet, would it be, what would be the female term?
Prophetess?
Yeah, have you?
Yeah. Deborah.
Deborah.
Yeah.
Deborah.
It literally says the prophetess.
Yes, it does. So she has been,
She's in Judges.
she's in Judges, would have just recently read of her.
Yep. Crazy story too. Like in her little stint with
Yeah.
the woman who drives a tent peg into
Woo!
another human being.
An overweight gentleman.
After giving after giving him milk. No, that was right before that. The overweight guy. That
Yeah.
Judges. You
Oh,
should
man.
read Judges. Is just some
It's intense,
wild stories.
everybody.
If you ever thought the Bible was boring, you are wrong.
It's
Well, and
intense.
You are reading it wrong.
Because I was reading it with our series that we're doing, but I read or watched the video. I was a couple days behind, so watched the video today, and it kind of gives the sum, and then you start reading it, and you're like, "Holy cow!" There's a whole lot that when you just read it as a kid, you were like, "Well, I don't know if I ever read it as a kid." Judges is intense, but it was like, "Oh my gosh, maybe they need to make a movie of Judges."
Yeah, maybe
Judges is
come.
violent.
It is violent. Yeah.
But so is the time period. I think that's where people get
Yeah.
lost when they read through all these things. Oh, so violent. But that's the time period they lived in. It was
Yeah.
might makes right. And God's coming in and trying to teach what it is to be a part of his kingdom. And it's not might makes right. If you have overflow to share, that was never a concept. And so the Israelites looked crazy at times because of God's trying to say, trust me. God I was saying, I will be your provider. But what would happen is you would have these Israelites that would begin to look at other nations and covet what they wanted. And that drove them actually crazy at times to pursue other things and put their trust in God, which we would all go, and we all do. Israelites are morons, stupid people. I would never be like that. But the truth is, when you read through the Old Testament where we're at, this is less of about the Israelites and about human nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And if you're truthful, you have had seasons just like the Israelites where you were really serving God and where you weren't serving God as much. Israelites, we just are seeing that ups and downs. I mean, when you read through the Judges, it's almost every chapter. They did evil in the sight of the Lord. They honored the Lord. Evil in the sight of the Lord. And every time they got misled, a prophet, oh, where you at? Switch to it. She's sleeping back
Gotta
there.
be ready.
The prophet would come
Yep.
and get them a course correction.
Yeah.
And so what I love about the prophets is that they would get your eyes back on the prize, that God is who should be our all. Okay. So that's the setup. So you have some idea of
That's good.
who
It's
a
great to have
prophet
you
is.
back.
What's that?
Sorry I interrupted, but it's great to have you back in your seat.
To help you come
No,
along, or
just
what?
being here. We've
Oh,
missed
it's good
you.
to be back. It's
We
good to be back.
always
both.
say you package it in a nice
Yeah.
little,
It's
with
good
a
to be
nice little
seen.
bow.
Good to be back. Good
Yeah.
to be here. Be streaming with everybody. The other thing is inside the story that we're going to have, you're going to have an encounter of one of the major gods of the Israel's time period in the book of Judges and 1st and 2nd Samuels and 1st and 2nd Kings, and that is the worship of Baal. Baal was one of the prominent gods of the Canaanites who they worshipped. And here's one of the biggest issues that you have throughout the history of Israel. God says through Moses, hey, you're going to possess the promised land, but when you possess the promised land, I want you to take everything and destroy everything. I want you to take all the land, but I don't want you to take all the possessions of it. I want you to kill everything.
Kind of like start new.
Start new. But here's why. Because God wanted to eliminate temptations. He wanted them to, we used the word around here this week, plunder. And Lily's like, what's plunder?
Can you explain that to me?
Yeah. But here's what I learned, Lil. You haven't watched enough Pirates of the Caribbean or pirate
Definitely
movies. Because
not. They
pirates-
use that. Yeah.
that's
pirates
for
were
sure.
always about
It's
the
the
plunder.
loot.
It's the
The
loot.
loot.
Yeah.
It's the things that those that you are conquering possess.
Got it.
God would tell most of the time when you go and conquer a land in a group of people to take nothing. And it wasn't because he wanted the Israelites to be poor. He didn't want the Israelites to think that their strength and their might came from possessions of earth, earthly things like gold, silver, bronze,
What a
herds.
concept.
They didn't want it. God didn't want them to think it was if you conquer, you become better socially. He wanted them to learn that I am your provider. I am your sustainer. And so at times you would see where a battle would happen and they wouldn't wipe out the entire group of people, or they would keep things and they would do evil in the eyes of God because they would not be fully obedient. And then consequences would ensue. You would see this all the time. I get this. And the reason why we're trying to give you this big setup to today, so you get, we answer some of your Sunday school lesson issues that you grow up going, okay, I grew up and I hear about all of these things that God does and he wipes out generations. Like, I heard it the other day. Somebody says, man, the Old Testament is full of genocide, where God just wipes out a group of people. There are no longer records of this group of people because the Israelites came and wiped them out. Well, you need to do your research on that. The reason this is happening was for 400, 500, 1,000 years, that group of people were given opportunities to change their ways. But they continued to get more wicked and begin to trust in fake gods and start to worship demonic things and began to erode humanity. And God finally says, this is it, and wipes them out. Not because he hated them, but because that was a result of their disobedience as they were given ample opportunities to surrender their life to Christ or to God at the time, because Christ was still foreshadowed, but not a real thing. It was to trust in God through the law. That didn't happen with these groups of people. And so God finally said, that's enough. Because he needed to make sure then also the Israelites would have less opportunities to fall into temptation and walk away from him. It's not genocide for genocide purposes. I don't support genocide of today's culture. You got to understand, we're back thousands upon thousands of years when this is happening, okay? And God is trying to continue to steer the course of men towards him because he wants a relationship with everyone. So if you've been turned off over the years about, well, God just is a God, he just wipes out a group of people because he just doesn't like them. That is so far from the truth. God is a God of grace and mercy and patience. But there is a line. And when we cross the line, there are consequences. And so we have an encounter today with, again, another group of people worshiping Baal because the Israelites didn't always wipe out all the fake idols or didn't wipe out all of the people. And what continued to happen for generation after generation, the Israelites would fall into the temptation to worship fake gods. Leads me to the question to you. Where have you been duped in your life? Where have you not cleaned out the things you should have cleaned out a long time ago? It's spring. At least it feels like it, not calendar-wise. But what is it that you know in your life you need to be cleaning out? Because if you don't eliminate it today, it's going to get you tomorrow. It's going to be right there. And if you say, oh, I got it, I can handle it, get out of here. Maybe it is genuinely for you alcohol. And you're like, sometimes I do drink too much. Then why are we still carrying that in the future? Eliminate it today so that you don't get behind a wheel and I would never do that. Well, the Israelites said I would never worship anyone but God, but then we see constantly where they do. Maybe it's the way maybe you should cut up credit cards because you constantly put yourself in debt, which stresses you out, which hurts your marriage. Maybe there's relationships with somebody in the opposite sex that you're handling right now that feels good and you're connected and we're just really good friends. Maybe you need to eliminate that friendship because holy cow, in 5 years, it could just destroy your marriage and destroy your relationship with your kids. It's spring cleaning time, folks. It's spring cleaning time. And so I know I just robbed a lot of Lily stuff.
No, that was great.
This is the setup to this. This is growing up your Sunday school faith into adult faith. God is not a God of genocide where he wipes people out because, I just didn't like them. They didn't. Nope. He give them.
You might need to say that one louder.
We even read in the book of Genesis, I think, or maybe it's Exodus. I highlighted it. I should have pulled it out. But God is having a conversation with Moses. Moses is like, hey, we're going to go take this tribe. I was like, no, they need more time. I'm not ready to wipe them out. They need more time. Why? Maybe they will turn to me. Maybe you need some pondering on the idea of like, why does God take people that are followers of him doing massive impact in the world before he takes somebody that's just being a lazy bum? Well, why would he? We'll use Collins's. We're coming off of Collins's celebration of life last week, who was a prominent voice on this YouTube channel, a great man of God. He was phenomenal in what he would say. Here, you can go back and find it. We're going to make a playlist here in a couple weeks.
That's a great idea.
Of his stuff. But he had so much more to give. But God was saying, no, come home. I refined you to the spot where you are the most like me. Come on home. Well, there can be somebody that's younger or older than him that isn't pursuing God like Collins did or spreading the gospel like Collins did that's still alive because God wants to connect with that individual. And it's hard to see that because we can't disconnect our emotions to people because that individual you might not be connected with, but you can look from afar away. Well, if I was God, I would take that lazy bum and just get him off the face of the planet. That is not how God works. That's human thinking. We try to rationalize some things, and it just don't do that. It's that sovereignty of God knows what he's doing, and God wants to be in a relationship with everybody.
And if you're the lazy bum, get it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get it together because it's the life of someone like Collins should inspire you going, oh, man, that man got after it while he was alive. I'm going to get it. I'm not going to waste what was given to me as a life.
Yeah.
So wake up.
That's good.
Do some spring cleaning. Get rid of the junk that's in your life that you know that's just baggage you keep carrying. Get rid of your past. I say this insensitively, but wrapped with some sensitivity. It's like a jalapeno popper, okay?
Yum.
It's hot and spicy, and then you just wrap it with bacon, which kind of hides the spice. So imagine what I'm about to say. It's like that. I'm gonna give some spiciness here, but it was wrapped in bacon disguised so it doesn't hurt so bad. But
I like the cream inside.
Yeah.
yeah, the
cream cheese.
Yeah.
So good right now.
Yeah. Here's the deal. You are wasting what God's given to you if you're sitting around. If you're not cleaning out the junk and you're living from the past of what you did and it determines your idea of yourself that you're not worth doing something in the future, that is stupid. You've become prisoner over something that you did 10 years ago. Stop it. No matter how big you measure it, no matter how bad it is, God wants to step in and forgive you of that. Move forward. You will continue to bump into things if you're looking backwards trying to walk forward. I mean, the analogy is simple. A windshield on a car is ginormous compared to the rearview mirror. Glance back, see where you come from. It's cool. Celebrate those things you've journeyed through. But you're looking forward to get after what God's calling you to do. Stop looking backwards. Stop looking backwards and driving forward. That's stupid. Just like doing life like that. No one but you cares what you did 10 years ago that deems you unworthy to be a parent or unworthy to stay married or unworthy to be a good husband. No one cares but you. And that's the enemy duping you. Let it go. Learn from it. Forgive yourself as God forgives you as long as you ask forgiveness and move forward. Move forward.
He's preaching, folks.
Love it.
So we got Baal. You're going to see this character, this made-up God, it's not a real God, of the Canaanites pop in and out through the Old Testament. And today, we're met with Baal and Elijah. I had to pause there in case the ladies give room to...
You did great.
Okay, what was
That's
the scenario? What was the weather like, Lily, in this
Yes.
story?
So we've met Elijah.
Oh, we got him right here. Come on.
Yep, we've met Elijah. We've met the
slow.
false god Baal. And at the time, there was a drought. So Elijah predicted a drought. Obviously, remember, he's a prophet, so he's hearing from God. And the drought means the weather, it was dry.
Yeah, so here we go.
Not very wet or rainy.
We do have the felt board. I'm in charge of the felt board. This is like a baby felt board.
And we're having fun with this. The whole point of this series is to grow up our faith and give you details to the story and not just say, look at this big thing Elijah did on behalf of God. So stick with us and hear it all.
Hear it all. So we God is represented today by the heart, everybody.
He is love.
Because he's love.
He is love.
Baal is this star.
Gold star.
Yeah. But next week it'll be on top of a Christmas tree, okay? So just
It might be.
So there we go. We got him in the corners.
And then we have our
Elijah.
Yep. And we will meet the king at the time, who is
his name is
Ahab. And there he is.
Put in the chat how to spell Ahab.
A little evil.
He looks evil?
He looks a little rough. He just wasn't the best king. I mean, Scott talked about King David 2 weeks ago. If you missed that, go back and watch. But King Ahab was not it for Israel. So
why?
He wasn't a great leader. There was a lot of, we'll meet later, his wife, Jezebel. And he was a passive leader who didn't lead the people of Israel well.
Get him out of here.
Hence, we have Elijah come in and do a whole lot. So here they are. And then there was this drought. The drought,
everybody.
Yep. We have dry land. There it is.
Doop, right there, a little dry land. Should we just put it at the bottom?
That's great. Good job. You're going to find that you're going to run out of room quick. Last week it was
little.
So this drought, for those of you who really want scripture references and we want to give those, we're around 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 1. Elijah predicts a divinely ordained drought, meaning God made this happen.
Okay, let's talk about that really quick.
Let's do it.
I know I'm hijacking your deal.
No, wherever this needs to go today is what is
because that's
needed.
some people's beef. God brought on a bad deal, like
right? And
a drought. Like I thought you just said God is a loving God.
Yes.
So how does that make sense? How do you speak this into existence? Because a lot of people struggle with this.
Yeah.
Bad things happen to good people.
Right. And at the time, there wasn't processed foods. There wasn't canned goods where you could survive and do okay. At the time, these people were living off of the land. They actually depended on water. And so, I think the way I think of that and when God brings like quote unquote droughts in my own life, he's teaching me something. And I just wonder if God was maybe trying to teach something in
Get
this
their
time.
attention,
Get their attention. Sure. What do you think?
No, again, I'm big on this as we talked about it. I think, I don't know, some time ago, within the last month, a refining process. I think all of those things that God allows to come in, or a divine, we'll call it a divine drought, is to refine people, to make people more like God, to call us back. I think a lot of times in our lives, those things that happen that we can't explain that are bad, you got two options. It's gonna propel you towards God or repel you away from God. And it's up to you. It's a revealing of your heart. So this drought reveals a lot of the heart of the people. And you're going to see it, right? In the story here that unfolds, it indicates, it separates really. You have on one side, even on our felt board here, you have those are going to side with Baal to figure it out, and those are going to side with God to figure it out. And a lot of times when you have lack of resources, money, where are you running? Do you just swipe a credit card? Sometimes that is what has to happen for a season, but is that where your trust is in? Because it's funny. Well, I've been on this earth long enough now and been around a lot of people. I've been around super, super wealthy people that the three of us would go, holy crap, to have all that money that they have. I mean, so much so, like, I sat at a restaurant to give indication of how much money I was sitting across the table with this guy. Sitting across the table with a guy that was like, hey, actually invites me to a restaurant. And I knew I was in trouble when I walked into the restaurant. I had a baseball hat on. And I just had a T-shirt on. And they're like, I'm sorry, you have to check in your hat.
I don't think I've ever been to a restaurant like that.
Follow up.
And you had to wear a coat.
Yeah,
which I felt
wow.
weird. Wearing somebody else's coat. I was like,
Yeah.
who had this on last?
Yeah.
I'm sure they clean it.
Oh, probably, maybe, sure. But so you're putting on this jacket. Now you look stupid because your outfit doesn't match
Wasn't
your
what
jacket.
you were going for to begin with.
Right. You got this surfer looking guy with a coat over a T-shirt, and you have like khakis. That don't, nonetheless, sitting down, and you start looking at the menu, and you're like, we're not walking out of here spending less than $500 a plate. Like
Yeah, that's
stupid
wild.
money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've never outside of with that gentleman. And so being around people like that, it's funny. You would think, oh, I'd never worry about anything if I had that kind of money. If I had stupid kind of money, if I just was wealthy, I'd never worry about my health. I would never worry about what I need in the future. And it's funny, as you sit across the table with these people, they still worry. Because we dupe ourselves to thinking man-made kings are going to satisfy our anxiety. We are duped by them because they come prepackaged. So we think if I trust in money, I trust in my job, I trust in these things, I'm going to feel good about life. But as soon as a curveball comes, I don't have enough anymore. I don't have enough money to make it through that. I just don't have enough. And so you find that a lot of times these moments in life that God allows to happen or he creates in our lives like a drought, it reveals our heart. And we got two options: to propel us into a better relationship with God or to repel us away from. And it's free will, baby. You hate it in these moments. You want free will to choose who to sleep with. And you want lack of free will when it comes to the right and wrong things in life, right? Like
Which direction to go.
Yeah. You
My
don't want
purpose.
that. God, just tell me what to do. And it's
Right.
like free will, baby. And so bad things happen to good people all the time because we live in a world where there are people that are sinners, that are looking for their selfish desires. And when people act selfishly, there's collateral damage and it hurts people around you. The three of us have fallen victim to each other's selfishness. This is true. Lily blows up at me because she wanted the last Twinkie and I ate it. And so she yells at me and hurts my feelings. And then I have to talk to my counselors about how my coworker is mean because I ate her Twinkie.
Dogs.
And my counselors are two dogs and one's a puppy right now. I don't
Gives
get good
bad
wisdom.
advice.
Yeah, bad advice. Just go for it. But, right, like our selfish desires hurt each other all the time. Therefore, a lot of times the collateral damage in our lives that hurt by other people is selfishness in the world. This is not one of those because man did not create a drought, but God does. God's trying to refine people. He's trying to show you and I the product of our heart.
Yes.
What's our heart look like? And here we have a drought, and it reveals the heart of a lot of people. Lily, continuing the story.
I just love this. You're spot on. Like, I'm so excited for them.
I haven't even read
This
your
is
notes.
so good. Okay. So the drought, obviously, God initiated. And as I hear you talk, Scott, I just think like that also must increase their dependence on him and create that opportunity for them to turn to him and run to him, like you're saying. So Elijah did that. Elijah turned to God and ran to him, and his dependence on God grew, and God took care of him during this time. God fed Elijah. The birds brought him provisions, and he's actually sent to this brook or creek where there's water, and then the creek dries up. I think that's interesting, and Elijah was asked to go to this creek by God and said, I'm going to take care of you here. How do you think he felt? Holly, how do you think he felt when the creek dried up? Do you think that was a little scary in the moment?
Well,
like, God, what are you up to?
I mean, like here he's thinking that he's being taken care of, and then all of a sudden now he's out up a creek with no,
Without a paddle.
with the, that he's like, hold on. I thought the deal was that if I step into this with these people, that I'm going to be taken care of. And then all of a sudden feels untaken care of. He's probably freaking out.
Exactly. And then...
But again, I think in all of it, refining process.
Exactly.
Well,
He's a man of God.
Even for somebody that we as readers or learning this story would look at and think, well, that person's being used by God, so they've got it all together. They still have a refining.
So God's refining him
For sure.
in the moment, but still taking care of his daily
exactly.
bread.
Exactly.
We got to be able to look at all of that. And again, the promises we have is God will give us our daily bread. This extra stuff we got going in our lives is wonderful. It gives good peace. But God never promised overflow of like your bank accounts and your storage bins will be full. He did for seasons. Like you'll read through, when you read through the Old Testament stories where Joseph predicts this 7 years of good and 7 years of bad. And it gave him, hey, 7 years of good. So get after it. 7 years of not so good. If you do it right in the first 7 years, you're going to be good in the 7. God allows us to have seasons of extra. Question what you're going to do
What
with
do you do with it, right?
But again, we're not promised those things. So therefore, when we think that's where our hope lies and it gets taken, where are you going to run?
Exactly.
What are you going to do?
Right.
What are your ethics going to say to do? What are your morals going to lead you to do? This is where the rubber meets the road, people. You call yourself a follower of Jesus, and when the rubber hits the road, then how do you behave? Because that's what makes people, their heads spin. People that don't know Christ, they start seeing you say, I'm a follower of Jesus, and then you get laid off, or you get a diagnosis, and all of a sudden you lose your mind. And it's okay to lose your mind, but your hope's still got to come for Jesus. But when you start doing wrong in the eyes of God, everybody else is watching and going, that doesn't make sense. They actually get turned off to a relationship with God because why would I want to be a part of that? You're just a liar. You're what we coined as a hypocrite.
Right.
And so, I think you see here in the story with Elijah, God provides for him, but also refining him in the process as well.
Exactly.
Continue the story, Lily.
And so who knows how much shortly thereafter God allows the creek to dry up or dries up or whatever. And then he sends him to the home of a widow who will take care of Elijah. And essentially it's God, because remember, there's a drought. So everyone is lacking at this time. And God provides for the widow. And then
Hold on, I like that. Everyone's lacking.
everyone's lacking.
Let me ask this question.
The widow in the story, you can find it in 1 Kings 17, 8 through 14. The widow's like, how am I to care for you? My son and I are starving. My son's almost dying. And Elijah has faith that God will provide, and he does. And even more happens. It's so
But
good.
that story you're referring to, we taught on it months ago.
We did.
Right here on this YouTube channel.
I'm going to put the link in the bio if you want to go back and watch it.
And that's the one where he walks into the room and just lays on the dude, okay? Because
son, right.
The son that was dead. Wild story. So many questions, but beautiful at the same time. This will trigger everybody to remember. This is where I said you got to spread the truth over your entire life, right? This is where, because every time the woman was asked, how are you doing? She would say, I'm fine. But the circumstances would dictate that she was not actually doing fine. But what she did is that God is the Lord of my life. And because he is a good Lord, he's a good God, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm in a grave situation, but I'm going to take the truth. And really, it's lying to yourself. Sometimes you got to lie to yourself in this positivity. of, no, God's still got me. I'm going to let that permeate my life, saturate everything. That's the story of there.
Yeah.
But you were saying, you said a second ago, that just triggered me. You said everybody was
is lacking.
Lacking.
Yeah.
Lacking.
Well, you think of a drought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody's lacking. So let's tie that into more practical in our own lives. What is it that you are lacking? What is it currently you are saying you don't have that's driving you mad? Is that a refining process that you're lacking in? Or is it you're after the lust of the eye? It's actually something God's not wanting you to go get anyways, but you are so fixated on it that you feel like you're lacking it, and therefore it's ruining your life and stressing you out and creating more of this mental anguish for yourself. God's like, I never wanted you to go get that anyways. So the question is, what are you lacking? Is it from God to teach you something, to refine you? Or is this something, the lust of the eyes is just getting, I want that promotion. Do you really need that? Is what God, has God laid in your heart to pursue the corporate ladder? Or is he saying, hey, just be content with what you got?
And let me move you if I want to move you.
Right.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, continue, Lil.
All right, so we're going to find ourselves now in 1 Kings chapter 18, and Elijah hears from God to present himself before the king, which is who at the time? Ahab.
This guy.
King Ahab.
Yeah, he's like, I know the picture better than
This
me.
guy.
King Ahab, who was evil in God's sight because he promoted the worship of who?
Baal. Unless you're Lily,
Baal.
she says Baal.
Baal, false little g God, which I might say a few times because little g means that it's a false God. It's not the real one and true God, capital G. He is God.
And that's
The God
important.
we follow.
That is
We
important.
were talking about when we were reading the Old Testament, you've got to pay attention to the way the word God is wrote, because there's so many gods that's talked about. Little g God is all the fake gods, big God, real gods who since Jesus died across, capital G. A lot of times also referred to as the Lord.
Yep.
And a lot of times that's all capital. When
Exactly.
Lord is put in the Old Testament,
Yep.
it's L-O-R-D,
And we'll see
all
that
caps.
even here in scripture we read today.
Okay.
Yeah, so Elijah goes, confronts King Ahab, and we're about to see a little bit of the spirit of Elijah and what kind of like what his personality might have been like. And he goes to Ahab, and Ahab says, hey, is this the troublemaker of Israel? Again, this is all in 1 Kings 18. Is this the troublemaker? You've been causing trouble here. And Elijah, I can picture like he like gives that finger back to him and is like, no, you're the one causing trouble. That he literally says this.
You said the finger.
This
If people are
finger.
just
You better be
listening to
looking
this,
at me.
It's the
Pointing.
pointer
Yeah,
finger,
pointing.
everyone.
An accusing finger. You are the one causing trouble, you and your family, because you're worshiping a false god. You're worshiping Baal. And Elijah challenges Ahab to see whose God is real once and for all. It's so good. This is the Sunday school Bible story that Scott, you said you remember hearing
Yeah.
when you were young.
Yeah,
Do you remember hearing? Did you guys have a flannel graph situation when you heard
when we
it?
were growing up?
When you heard the story?
Absolutely.
Is that what you
I was
remember?
in a room. I'll paint the
I
picture
actually
for you.
Yeah,
think my
I'd love
mom
to-
was my Sunday school teacher at this time.
I was attending a Free Methodist church.
Yeah.
Want to know why Free Methodist? What's the difference at the time? Free Methodist and Methodist is because at some point, way back in the day, Methodists used to charge to sit in the front row, and then they started Free Methodist, and it was
it's free.
free.
And people would pay to sit in the front row.
Yeah,
Are they
long
closer
back-
to God?
I
Was
don't
that
know.
the idea?
Somebody's gonna say that's not true.
Sorry, guys.
But it just. That's what I was told
why
when I
you
was a
went to
kid.
Free
That's
Methodist.
what I was told as a kid. Okay. Anyways, Free Methodist, I was in a classroom that had the Noah's Ark scene painted on the back wall. Big rainbow, big boat perched up on a big old rock, and a dove flying in the air, and all these animals jammed into a little boat. Like too many animals, not enough space. That's the image.
That's how it was last week with Joey.
That's what it was on the back wall every Sunday I
so
saw.
good.
And then this big flannel graph of this story being
Yeah.
painted. And it was, they just taught it. And I'm telling you, the same characters was a week ago, it was David. But
Yes.
now David was playing Elijah. And so it's,
Right.
I have, some, I mean, it's
You're
funny.
confused as a kid.
Yeah, you get
I
confused.
thought that was okay.
Yeah.
So Elijah says to Ahab, let's see whose God is real. Let's put this to the test. And he's basically saying, call everyone in Israel, or King Ahab, get all the false prophets that worship this Baal that you like so much, and we'll meet on your home field, and we will see who's real. And they agree. So they plan a time to meet. And we're going to pick it up in 1 Kings 18, chapter 21, which we'll throw up on the screen for you all because I love this. Elijah stood in front of them. He stood in front of the whole crowd of people that were there. Israelites, people who turned their back on the God of Israel and started worshiping Baal. And he says, "How much longer will you waver, hobbling between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, then follow him." But the people were completely silent. And I like this idea of him challenging their wavering and him challenging them hobbling between two opinions. Some versions say limp. How long will you go on limping between? Like, you're not really decided. And I wrote it like this: if you try to get your life, your meaning, your worth, your fire, because that's what they're trying to get is fire. We'll learn that in a second. From anything but the true God, you will be lame all your life. You're not gonna move anywhere. And the world may call it a dance, going back and forth between the things, the lust of the eyes, like Scott was saying, and the things you idolize and create false gods in your life. But God calls it a limp. He wants us, this reminds me of, he doesn't want us to be lukewarm. He wants us to be all in or all out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It reminds me of how John writes in Revelations, the last book of the Bible, is that God says, "I spew them out of my mouth because they were lukewarm." I'd rather you be hot or cold, but not this middle of the road. It's almost like when we're playing it safe. We got one foot in one world and the other. God's like, that's gross to me, and it makes me sick, and I'm going to spew you out. Because you make it hard for people who want to follow me because it's like, who are you?
Right.
And I think the world is full of lukewarm followers of Christ. Is that our confidence doesn't fully come from God? That we look at a story like this. I mean, we would never step into this because Elijah has no idea if what he's setting up, this challenge, that God's going to show up. He's exercising the faith. We talk about, God, I know you can, but will you?
He is.
He's exercising this, and he has no idea God would do it.
Right.
You have no idea if God would show up when you invite somebody to come to church. Like, these are baby steps as a follower of Jesus. Invite your stinking family and friends to church. Why would you not do this? Why are you so selfish to worry about your life that you wouldn't invite a stranger to come to church? It's like, this is bottom of the barrel stuff as a follower of Jesus. This is baby stuff. And you won't even do it because you're so worried about what will they think about me, or worried that they would think, oh, I'm a hypocrite, which we all are, but they might look at your life going, who are you? You're so lukewarm. Change your life. Become on fire, as we're going to use this term. That's what Christianese. On fire means I'm hot.
Yeah, I'm hot. I'm in this.
I'm in it. I burn with passion to spread the gospel. But we are so worried about this baby stuff. I don't know if I can invite them to church. What if they say no? It's not on you for them to say yes.
Right.
It's for you to have the boldness to stand into, even in circles with coworkers that are talking about things that are not how people should live their life, and being able to, in love, be able to say, no, these are Jesus principles. And sometimes you don't need to say it's Jesus principles. You just teach it. But I just try to say invite people to church because that's bottom of the barrel, baby Jesus following kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, you're never going to step into a situation that's this big.
Yeah, this is a big one.
And so we as a kid on flannel graphs, girls, this was like, oh, I want that kind of faith.
That's awesome.
I want to live life like that. But you grow up and go, oh, but what if God doesn't show up?
Yeah, life is scary. Yeah.
Big deal. If God doesn't show up, then at least it's a form of worship and a heart check that I trust God in every situation.
Yeah, and I think we need to be careful as we say he was a prophet. He heard from God. He spoke for God, to not put him in this special position of like, well, he's special. Well, the pastor is special because they're devoting their lives, or they have this special anointing, which means God has chosen them to do something great, right?
But free will sits in those people.
Same. Yes, free will sits. Right? And we have to remember, as Elijah does these things we're about to talk about, there's got to still be something. There's a great confidence in him, which is amazing. But like Scott's saying, he still doesn't fully know what God is going to do. He just believes that his God is the one and only true God, to the point where he's willing to put his whole reputation on the line, and probably even his life. And so we'll pick back up in 1 Kings. This is 18, 22 through 25. We see that Elijah challenges this challenge to see whose God is real. And he says, let's bring 2 bulls. And he says, you guys can take your first choice of the bull for the offering that we're going to lay on this altar and prepare it and lay it on wood. And he says, I'll do the same, but you guys go first. Just don't light it on fire.
Wait, you said, well, I want to make sure they hear what you said, or you missed
thank
it,
you.
or I missed it. Because the challenge is to see whose God is the real God.
Exactly.
Right.
Not a challenge of who's a better God.
No.
No.
Whose is the one and only true
Right.
God.
So that's what's at play here.
Exactly.
Sorry
if that was unclear.
Elijah said that earlier. Like,
Right.
let's do this. Bring everybody together. Let's do this so that we can see who the one true God
But
is.
here's
it's a
what
final test.
you got to pull from Elijah here is he's going, I know. His confidence was he knows the real true God.
He knows what's real. Yeah.
He knows what his God's capable of because of the things he's read and seen.
Exactly.
You got to remember, Elijah only has his time period of being alive of the things he's seen. So his faith has been grown and matured by the stories he's heard from Moses and Abraham and Joseph and all of those stories that we pull our faith from. He wasn't around for those things. So his moment in this, he's still using the years of life that he's had and seen God do things, plus an additional of what he's read. It's the same thing you and I've got. We can have the same confidence that we read of these men and women throughout the Old Testament because we can pull from the stories of old and the years we've been alive and seen God work. Now, the question is, can you see where God's working in your life? Or do you think it's just been your talent and talent alone that's got you, the things you've gotten seen? If you don't have stories where God's showing up and showing off in your life, you're blind. Or you don't trust God, you're not living a life where you're dependent on God. I would challenge you today to move from your comfortable little sweet little life that's all like perfect and planned out and move to a life of uncomfortability and unpredictability and chase God and watch him do something phenomenal with the rest of your life. And in that, your faith will grow and you will have stories and people will talk of you in your faith moving forward. My dad and my mom, they got crazy one time. They heard some guy on a YouTube channel and 2 ladies talking about faith and talking about doing great things and being on fire. And I just did it.
Yeah.
And then their faith will grow because they have your story to build on. So Elijah's building his faith based on what we read in the Old Testament he read, plus the few years he's been alive. There's no difference here. A prophet is not downloaded some supernatural power like an Avenger.
Right. I think a big part of what you're saying, and if you want to take hold of this and like go after that faith, keep giving God the credit for everything that happens, because that will help you know it was never me to begin with. It was always God initiating, sustaining, and fulfilling what he began in my life.
That's what David's prayer was
That's
2
good.
weeks ago, right? When we went through David,
Yeah.
and his prayer at the end of his life was, everything I have comes from God, so why would I not give it back? It's like this. This is funny.
Oh.
Like when you go to money, right? Money, big church topic. Oh yeah, always after my money. Do you tithe to a church? Do you give a percentage of your money to church? Here's a simple way for you. Get $100, get $10, get $20, and put them out. Like get $21 bills, bloop, 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 or 10 $100 bills, bloop, 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 and take one of those away and go, God, I'm going to give you this. And God's going to go, that's cool. But it was already mine to begin with because I gave it all to you anyways. So you're actually keeping more of my stuff anyways. But then when you do that, you're always going to look going, wow, what a small portion I'm giving to the God that has the ability to change my life in the world. Oh, here's your tip. It almost feels like a tip when you do this illustration, but we struggle to even walk through that. We're talking about inviting somebody to church and you're like, I can't do that. That's because you won't even tithe. You won't even give up a portion. The Bible says that be careful because your treasure, your faith could be in your possessions. And if you struggle to give a portion away to God, and how we do that in this day and age, a lot of people are deconstructing their faith. Oh, the church just wants your money. That's a lie. That's a joke. That's so fake. There are some churches that are gross like that. We're not one of those. We use it to do ministry. It is taking that portion, giving it back to the church. The church does ministry and reaches more people. If you can't do that and trust that process, you will never
That's right. Yeah.
do the big accolades that you desire to do. That's baby stuff. That's Christianity 101. Trust God with a portion, a percentage of your money. Okay.
Yeah, it's a great place to start. All right, so we see that Elijah challenges Ahab and his whole crew, and it's Ahab and all their prophets' turn to call on Baal and ask for fire. And remember, Scott said at the beginning, I love this. Well, you might not have said at the beginning, it might have been before, but he looked up what did this false god represent? And they believed that he was a god of weather, right? Did you say or rain or fire and elements?
Yeah, the Canaanites, okay? The Canaanites, the group of people, when they worship Baal, Baal has a lot of personalities. And it was really whatever was your need.
Sure.
Is kind of what you would attach to, but a lot of times it was a god of fertility, weather, specifically rainstorms.
Hilarious.
Okay, so
which is what they need.
They're in a drought.
Right, yeah. That's why they're going to worship Baal in such a way. And then when you go baked into this pagan religion was a lot of prostitution, because they felt like prostitution was a form of worship to Baal to continue to allow their group of people to be fertile, because in that day and age, the bigger you were as a group of people, the harder it was to conquer you.
Right.
Okay, so when you dig through these things, it's a lot of crazy, gross things that you're...
Yeah.
But it's a fake God. It's not real.
Not real.
I like how every time I say not real, Lily backs me up.
Not real.
I'm like,
not real,
that's
guys.
right, because I know which one is real. And it's ours. So they're calling on Baal to send fire, and there was no reply. And so they started dancing, and they ran around their altar with the bull and hobbled around the altar for like 3 hours. And Elijah, at one point, he starts to taunt them, saying, you'll have to shout louder. Maybe your God is busy. One translation literally says, maybe he is relieving himself, which I just think Elijah must have had some sort of humor. And so they shout louder, and they literally even cut themselves. They start to draw blood to try to get the attention of their God to send fire onto this altar. I keep
interrupting you, but when you think about it, Lil, you're watching someone where you're worshiping and your confidence comes from the true God, and you watch somebody doing all this for waste.
Right.
Like you're cutting yourself, harming yourself. And how do you not just go, yeah, keep doing that?
Right.
Good idea, guys. Woo-hoo!
It should have been the one sign that this was all whacked out.
Like, I love that you got this part of, and it gives me comfort in my taunting to other people. that you have
Elijah did it. Elijah did it.
He's taunting.
Elijah, I like getting to know him.
Yeah,
because he seems like a confident, but also just real fun, maybe sometimes taunter.
Yeah, for sure. He was.
I think it speaks to the confidence that he has in the one true God of like, yeah, keep going, do what you need to do. Like, how absurd are you? And still knowing that he still doesn't know exactly how God's going to show up, but he is still confident that the one true God is the God that he's telling him about.
And if you still need a picture, here's our flannel graph.
There you go.
You're listening. We have,
now it all makes sense.
It all comes together, right? I've had to really work to keep these stuck on there, like rubbing them.
Today.
And I've extended our flannel graph here.
Nice.
But we got the cow on the Baal altar. Here we got the king of Baal worshiping. We didn't get the crowd of people.
Yeah.
And then we have Elijah over here taunting. Oh, you suck. Cut yourself some more. Why don't you whip yourself? I mean, they're doing it to themselves.
They are. And it probably looks crazy, but that's what happens when we worship false gods. And we don't use that terminology, but when we let our hearts run toward anything but Jesus, we are doing the equivalent, and we need to be mindful of it. And we should actually have this picture of a bunch of people cutting themselves and bowing down to nothing and looking crazy. And they did this until evening with no answer, no fire. And we pick up in 1 Kings 18. We're in around verses 30 to 34 if you want to go read this for yourself. It was Elijah's turn. And he's probably amped at this point because he's like, this is exactly how I pictured this to turn out. And so he calls his people around the crowd. He actually takes 12 stones that represent the 12 tribes of Israel.
Which, pausing there.
You love it. Let's pause.
Pause here because this is a big deal. Like, I'm just trying to, again,
yes, it is.
This is how we grow up our faith. So that's why I keep the 12 stones of the tribe of Israel, because back when Moses was bringing them out of Egypt, they broke them into tribes, and it remains that way. Even when you're watching the House of David, you see representation of the 12 tribes. that Saul has the 12 tribes come through and he honors them and they bring gifts to Saul. Pay attention to these things because these are narratives. I hate to use a literary term because it's not just narratives.
It was real.
But it's real life. The 12 tribes represent all the way through. It's a big deal. All the way through. King David comes through one of the tribes, and you become an owner of your tribes. And so Elijah's coming with the 12 stones, which is a big deal to represent the 12 tribes of Israel, saying, hey, the God that is over these 12 tribes, this group of people that are of God's ascension.
Descent. Yeah. I know what you're saying.
Are represented in what's about to happen. This is not some
That's
fake
right.
God. This is the same God that brought Moses and the Israelites out of the slavery deal and up to this point in and out of different conquests and overthrown by other countries. Same God here. Mm-hmm. Go with your
So
story.
Elijah starts to grab these stones, and he's already doing it differently than Ahab did. So you can only imagine what their crew's feeling and thinking as he does this. He's grabbing the stones. He has help from the people, and he even digs a trench around the altar, which they're looking for fire here. So it's why is he digging a trench? And then he piles wood on the altar. He cuts the bull into pieces, lays it on the wood, and this is where the trench comes in, and it starts to make sense, even though it doesn't really make sense, because he starts to bring in water. And he tells the people, let's bring 4 large jars of water and pour it over the altar. And he has them do that 3 times to the point where water is filling into this trench. And I just think that Elijah, he's like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this big because I know my God is going to come through. I know the real one true God of Israel and the one who created the heavens and the earth and the whole world is going to show up here and bring fire. So we're going to read it together in verse 36 of 1 Kings chapter 18. It says, at the usual time for offering the evening sacrifice, Elijah the prophet walked up to the altar and prayed. So he prays, O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, prove today that you are God in Israel and that I am your servant. Prove that I have done all this at your command. O Lord, answer me. Answer me so these people will know that you, O Lord, are God and that you have brought them back to yourself. This is where I got excited earlier when Scott kept saying, go back to God. He's inviting us to go back. NIV, the version of that last section says, you are turning their hearts back again. And I just think what a picture that Ahab and his whole crew, they danced and they bowed and they cut themselves. And what did Elijah do? What did he do? He prayed. He called on the Lord. And so when it comes to God being a heart turner, Holly, what do you think this reveals to us about God in this moment that Elijah knew he wanted to turn all the people who are watching back to himself? What does it reveal to us about our God?
That he loves us so much that he's willing to do like unimaginable, like to go after it, to give us chance after chance, to let these people try to give them another chance to see that he is the one true. Like, I'm sitting here. I'm right here. I've led the way all the way through this for all these years.
Right.
And I'm still here, like giving another chance. You said it earlier so well. Like, it's not just like God just kills. No, he gives opportunity and he's there and waits for us to turn our hearts back to him over and over and over.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing when you read through the story of Elijah is that he himself is not being magnified or amplified.
Yeah,
it's God and God alone. You really want to, maybe this sounds manipulative, but you want to get God to potentially show up and show off and wait. Make sure there's none of you in the middle of that situation. Oh God, help me get the promotion. Well, it sounds like you're sitting on the throne partially.
Yeah.
Unless, right? Like you just imagine the prayers you're praying because Elijah prays a prayer that has nothing to do with him. Oh, and my name will be great in the generations. It was simply so people would turn back to him.
Well, and just on that too, like it was about the people. Mm-hmm. If the prayer is to exalt who Elijah was or if the promotion is so that I get something out of it, something more from it, well, then it's a miss. If it then goes bigger, and we talk about this a lot all the time, it's about the people. It's about those you come in contact. Those are the ones that need reach. Those are the, so here Elijah is so that the people can see. So that people, it wasn't about him being recognized or known or even written as a Sunday school story. Mm-hmm. It's about the people turning their hearts
to God.
Mm-hmm. Right back to him.
It's you inviting people to church so that they might find Christ, that their hearts would turn. Mm-hmm. We want to make the world a better place. It's not about new laws. It's not about old law. It's about people finding Christ and Christ alone. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that changes the world. We see through the Old Testament, as people do right in the eyes of the Lord, great things happen. When they do evil in the sight of the Lord, bad things happen. When we start building our own kingdom, bad things happen. When we build the kingdom of Jesus, great things happen. Yeah. And this is a call to a generation of Baal worshipers to call them back to God.
That's right.
And Elijah's goal was that and that alone.
Yeah.
It was not, I want more followers so that right? We twist so much of like, I want more followers so I can pour more people to Jesus. Really, is that really your heart? Or is it because it feels good? Sometimes it's examining our own heart and letting go of the things that fill us instead of really the things that need to fill us is God and God alone. Now, we're humans, and that is easy to do for a season, and sometimes we get duped and something new fits in, and we're like, oh, crap, I didn't realize I was getting self-worth from that. I need to change that. Whole nother topic, but that's where we're at here. So he's praying.
So he prays, and we see the outcome. The scripture says, immediately, verse 38, immediately the fire of the Lord flashed down from heaven and burned up the young bull, the woods, the stone, and the dust. It even licked up all the water in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell face down on the ground and cried out, the Lord, he is God. Yes, the Lord, he is God. Literally every ounce of water was completely vanished. I mean, exactly what Elijah was hoping for happened. And he was probably so pumped at this point.
And if you if you're not understanding what's happening, here's your flannel graph for you guys. Here is the scenario. We've shortened it so you wouldn't be distracted. But here you go. The fire and rain just annihilates the altar. Elijah's sitting over here. Woohoo! Oh, the storm moves out, obviously, because you didn't need it the whole time.
There's rain coming, actually.
So there is your flannel graph story of something that is so, like, again, when you say it evaporated all the water.
Yeah, licked it up.
It's the power of God.
Yes.
Like it's the power.
Right.
It didn't just trickle away.
Right.
I'm just picturing like immediate.
Yep.
Not over time, because have you ever done that? Taking let's say you have a can of bubbly, or Pepsi, and you throw it into a fire, and you can hear it sizzle, and eventually over time it evaporates.
Right.
We're talking about immediately.
No, this is,
Well, that just means that fire was
hot.
Immediately was on, like,
and God's power on.
It wasn't just this little spark. It was like full on. Flames.
Yeah.
I just think we hear these stories and we just move on instead of sitting on what would that be like?
Yeah.
Like how hot is that? Like, do I have eyebrows now because I was so close? Like, did my eyebrows get singed off because it's so hot? Like, that's the stuff we're talking about here.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. And I think it's important to note that what Elijah does first, before the fire comes, is pray. And a few verses later, in verses 41 through 44, Elijah prays again and rain comes. The 3-year drought ends. He predicts it's coming. He says to King Ahab, you better go get some food and settle down. The rain is coming. But right after he tells him, Elijah goes to the top of the mountain, bows down, gets on his face and prays. And he knew the rain was coming. He said, I can hear it. But he prayed first. He knew his heart was in the right place. His priorities were in the right place. And I think that these actions show that it's not me that gets the credit, God, it's you. You are fulfilling everything you said. And in 1 Kings 18:44, the rain comes as God had promised after a 3-year drought. And so this big thing happens. God displays his power. God shows the people that he is the one and only true God. And we see those people, including the Baal worshipers, say, yes, he is the Lord. And they're proclaiming that. Now, what they go and do from there, we know, even in our reading, that Israel continues to go back and forth. And it wasn't the end all be all for Israel. Elijah wasn't the kingpin to say, I helped stop on behalf of God, helped stop the worship of other false gods. And now that everyone's following the God of Israel. And so we're going to fast forward as we wrap this up to 1 Kings chapter 19, where we see Elijah take a huge shift personally.
Okay, before we get to that shift, I do think as the rain comes, I think this whole act with Elijah before the rains come gives the people the chance to go, the rain came from God. Not just Elijah, but this group of people. Because if it would have just started raining, well, Baal, we've been worshiping and sacrificing Baal. We finally pleased him.
Right.
And so therefore, we've done enough. He relinquishes his
grip. But are you saying it's because Elijah predicted?
Well, because Elijah showed that the God that he spoke for was powerful and capable of doing the unthinkable. When he says that God is going to send the rain, they go, that is true.
Yeah.
That his God.
And then the God of Israel gets credit.
God of Israel gets credit, not we did enough to please. Because that's the thing when fake gods are and idols are a part of our lives, we think, well, I've done enough to please them, so they're relinquishing whatever it was. Because if you go long enough in time, droughts do end. But if you understand that, oh, wait, let's put it into the true God and see what power he does have. He has the ability to end droughts, start droughts, powers to flood, and so on, right?
Yeah.
When you see the power of God, you can correlate very quickly. Oh, this drought ended because God got the glory, and God it was done refining his people, also being able to reach a group of people that potentially people gave their life to Christ and forever changed a family's dynamic forever.
Right. Exactly.
So, and as Lily alludes to, we're about to have a shift into, and this should give some, as I said before, I was like being like a jalapeno popper and being a little spicy, but wrapping it in bacon. This is going to give you a little bit of the human side of a man of God that did great things.
That's right.
He still had some mental issues. That sounds. Somebody's going to be offended by that.
Struggles.
Hey, it's not. Don't be offended. You got issues. I got issues. I'm not defined by my issues, but I got issues. But those that have those mental health problems, that's the political correct way to say it. Is he's got them too, even after you do something great.
Exactly.
And so we're going to have to abbreviate and get to the end of it, right? Like we're up there. Like just speed it up a little bit so you get the context of what's about to happen and see the yin to the yang of this thing. Because here's this guy that did something. I mean, all of us sitting there going, will we ever have an opportunity to stand in front of groups of people and get to expose them to such power of God? Will we? Will I? I don't know. I would hope so. Whew, that'd be amazing. Maybe at camp this year we should soak some wood. Pray.
I said that to the students because we talked about Elijah on Wednesday too. But so basically we pick up in chapter 19 and King Ahab goes home to his wife, who is Jezebel, and he tells him everything, and Jezebel's furious and she threatens Elijah's life. She goes to him and says she's going to kill him, essentially. So Elijah's afraid. He flees. He goes to the wilderness and he travels all day and he's exhausted.
Wait, hold on. You just buzzed over.
I thought you said to speed up.
I know, but like you buzzed over a big piece that will give some people some.
You got it. You're helping. You're steering well. So if we need to slow down, that's fine.
He's been threatened by his wife. There's a whole thing to talk about there, but we don't have time to talk about his wife. Be careful who you marry. All you single people that just desperate to get married. Oh boy.
Yes.
Clearly, she wasn't who she is now. She's threatening to kill him because of something great he did, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of alludes to that she might not.
She's totally threatened.
She doesn't have her crap together as a follower of God.
Well, she obviously wasn't there to see it.
Obviously,
has no respect
no indication
for God,
of that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Nor of his position, right? Like, okay. Be careful who you marry.
Yeah.
Listen to people around you if they're saying, I got red flags on that. You should hit the eject button. It's way easier to eject when you're dating than it is when you're married because it's just less of an option, right?
Less collateral damage.
Right. So get out while you can. If some people go on red flags, says here she is. The thing I really want to point out is him. Did something amazing for God, saw his power, now afraid of his wife Jezebel. So much afraid, and I get it, your life's being threatened. he runs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Right.
I don't understand.
Right. Where is the confidence?
I was going to say, where is that? Here he was, like, the unthinkable to be able to happen. And where all of a sudden he gets threatened.
Yeah. And the thing we don't see here is like, I'm picturing, okay, in my own life, God does something big and then I take a shift and go to this. I have people in my life who would say, where is that confidence? And who you just were a second ago. And we see him just run.
Yeah, I don't think prophets in that day, as you read through,
where's the community?
I don't think people befriended them very much because of the fear of, oh my gosh. You see in the House of David, if you haven't seen it, go to Amazon Prime. We get no pushback. We don't have an affiliate down there. It's a decent story. It'll get you you should at the same time read your Bible as you read it so you can pick out the creative liberties they have in it. But you'll see in there, they make it where Samuel, the prophet, he shows up to a town of like,
he's kind of alone.
Yeah, why are you here?
Yeah.
Because no one wants to be, like in that day and age, you're fearful of them for what they would say and fearful of that they would continue to judge your life. So they're not, I don't think that you see a bunch of prophets with a bunch of friends, okay?
But fortunately today, we can make
have good
sure
community.
that we are in community.
Yes.
And not run to the wilderness and,
I just, again, I put it in the context of that day and age and the culture. So afraid of his wife that he runs. I could see in a format of today somebody being because we have the ability to fire guns. So like someone could overpower you with a weapon. Sure. In this day and age, what kind of woman is this?
Yeah.
Like that he's so afraid he runs. I could see creating space. I'm just saying like his mental capacity here is somewhere else.
Yes.
Because the power anyone had over you, you had to be within proximity of an individual to take their life. It wasn't the ability to stand 100 yards away and do that, right? Like you just didn't have, I get it, bows and arrows and stuff.
I mean, but you think of this as the king's wife has the ability to call on whoever, to
the king's wife or his wife?
It's Ahab's wife.
That threatens to kill him.
Exactly. Jezebel,
sorry.
And I read that they married for political reasons. I mean, she had her heart is not in the right place at all. She's promoting the worship of Baal, so she's feeling threatened that Elijah just won that battle. And there is a deep, so much more we can learn about her. She is evil. She has evil intent.
But the thing is, like even in those things, is anytime a false god is proven to be false, oftentimes false gods give profit politically, financially, or socially to the leaders of said cultures. She's now going to lose her power to manipulate people as they move their confidence into God.
She has felt threatened because now the one true God is...
and I get it, she has the power and the means probably to take his life, so I guess I back up a little bit. But he's running for his life because a woman is... But again, the point, even in this point for all of us, we better have a target up on the board, what we're trying to do as a Christ follower, that we're going to invite people, we're going to be bold and confident. And when we lay our head on the pillow and fear creeps in, we got to have a solution that we follow the one true God. Because here we don't see any indication of Elijah going, I just saw God do something unthinkable. I'm not going to be fearful. You also can see that Elijah still has a lot of self in him. Because what do we ultimately all want to preserve our life? And he's preserving his life. So he takes off running. He runs to the mountains. And this is where in the flannel graph story, you just don't see this. You don't see where he gets afraid. You just see this great act.
Yes.
Woo,
Yes.
have faith like that. And all of a sudden
and he's coming down.
It's literally the next chapter.
It's the next chapter. Yeah. And he runs up, he hides under a tree and he prays, I've had enough, Lord. Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors who have already died. I mean, he is completely in a different spot. And his answer or his prayer wasn't answered. I mean, we sense that Elijah's saying, I can't do this anymore, Lord. I mean, the work he did was stressful. And to him, he's wondering if it accomplished anything. And
do you think he's asking this, take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors who have already died, as like the question of like, he missed it again right then? Like, he doubted,
he ran.
he feared, he forgot. His confidence is in the Lord. You know, do you sit there and think, oh man, now he's ran away? Like, oh shoot.
I bet it's like a mix of all three. He's being threatened by this evil woman who has a lot of power. He didn't see the people whose heart he had a heart for all turn to God immediately and stay there. And he's running. Mm-hmm. It's like, what a combination of things that could really mess with his mental capacity. And I realized that, and maybe he realized that people reject God despite the evidence, not because of the evidence. People have a way of we've talked about it this whole morning, that because God gives us choice, there's things that we choose over the reality, even if there is evidence that God is good and he is real. And I just wonder that when Elijah examined the apparent failure of his work, he instinctively set the blame on his own unworthiness. I mean, when do we do this? When do we go, well, it must be because of me that this didn't take place, and forget that God has a plan, that God is in control? And so we pick up at verse 5, where Elijah's under this tree and he's depressed and he's sleeping, and an angel touches him and says, get up and eat. And this is obviously God taking care of Elijah.
And sometimes in our lives, if you got mental illness, it's somebody calling you, say, hey, have you bathed recently? Have you taken care of yourself? And we are looking for signs from God, and that was the sign, and you miss it because you're looking for an angel. But God uses people. We moved from I'm going to use the word mechanism. That's so not right. But a spiritual aspect where angels are the prominent messenger, to now we're on the other side of Jesus, where God uses people to answer those prayers.
Yes.
And so when you feel a nudge, it's been a long time since I called that person. Call them.
Yes.
Don't text them. Just call them. Who cares?
Right.
If it's been a decade, God put them on your heart. Call them, because you might be the messenger that rescues them, because God's not done with them. Because we see here, he starts praying, God, take my life, take my life.
And he's obviously not done with him.
Yeah, because God doesn't take his life.
Right.
One prayer was answered earlier. God zap this thing. Prayers later, he's fearful of his life. Take my life. I'm over this life. Mm-hmm. I'm over the struggle. And God's like, I'm not done with you, big pans.
Right.
Get up. Eat something. Because then he sends him on a long journey to a mountain. Like 400-mile journey or something?
Yes. God sent Elijah on a 200-mile, 40-day trip to Mount Horeb, which is also known as Mount Sinai, which, if you know, Mount Sinai is where what?
Moses.
Commandments.
Yes.
Hey, hold on, let me
big
ask
things.
this.
Actually, they think, scholars think that the same place that Elijah goes, where we're about to see what happens, is the same place that that Moses was when he prayed to God on the mountain.
Ooh, that's pretty cool.
Little cavern.
That would not take much for me to get there.
Yeah.
Like, God
I just think that's so cool.
So I would 100% agree with that. So as Historic wakes up, the computer is falling asleep over there. It's been active for a little bit. We probably need to change that setting. But we're upgrading some of the infrastructure here. Soon you'll see some of those effects for your viewing and your enjoyment. Thank you for everybody that has been a part of the journey. We're excited about the new things to come on this space. And so we've made some technology upgrades
that's right.
that we see in here, that you will feel the effects. And so thank you for your generosity that you give. As we were talking about earlier, we make it super easy to give. I'll just get it out of the way right now. I mean, shoot. If you want to help continue the mission of Unlock Church, which is to spread the good news locally here in Minnesota, digitally through YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all of those, and globally through our mission trips, you can give. Like, man, pick a percentage and give to Unlock Church monthly, weekly, all out of your checks. Give is super easy. You can text the number 77977 to the word unlock. You can go to unlockchurch.com/give, and you can get, like, we appreciate your generosity. It is helping us further the kingdom, and it takes money to do this, guys. And your faithfulness, God has set up a whole mechanism for the gospel to be sent out in the church to do what the church does through your generosity and your trusting with your first fruits. And so some of the things have fallen asleep. We're upgrading so that we can reach more people better, greater, and do at a better capacity. So thank you for those that give. Maybe today you're like, I've never given. I feel a nudge to do that. Great. You're going to help us continue to do what we're doing. We want to see, as we wrap up this year, we want to see an average of 150 views on our teachings every week. 150. That's growing by 50 views throughout. I get it. There's some easy things to do, but it costs resources to get this to be pushed out through YouTube, and those mechanisms cost money. And so your generosity will help us further the kingdom digitally. And so we got Elijah on his way to a mountaintop, which is the same place that Moses was, which is wonderful. And God is a God that is a God of purpose and reason.
That's
Nothing is a fluke. Oh, I'm glad that paid out or played off, or that, I didn't
That'll
see that
look
coming.
really good in scripture.
Yeah. But you have him now perching a 200-mile walk, which I was trying to put in context for some people. Like you go over a journey from Miami to, you remember the big body of water in Florida, for all our Florida residents, what's the big reservoir in the middle of Florida that pumps all the water down to Miami for us to drink?
The Intercoast.
Okeechobee?
Okeechobee.
I didn't know.
Okeechobee.
Took me years to figure out how to say it.
Okeechobee.
Is it a lake? I mean,
Yeah.
Lake.
Yeah, they
Okeechobee,
called it.
Yeah, it's a
lake.
reservoir. You
Lake
can ride your bike
Okeechobee.
around it. It's ginormous. Do you know how many miles it is to there? Do you know how many miles it is to Orlando?
No,
Wow.
I don't know.
How about we Google this?
I've
ladies?
lived my
Your
older
devices.
life in
can do that.
Minnesota. Yeah, we could. Holly's on it.
Okay, because 200 miles.
200 miles,
We're
yeah.
trying to put perspective of 200 miles. That Peoria to Chicago, 200 miles.
Got it.
Yeah, there you go.
From Minneapolis to Duluth,
Around.
around. No, there
it be
and back
less?
is 200 miles.
Oh, got it.
Ragnar
Okay.
Run was 100 miles.
Oh, yes.
So it's there and
Got it.
back is roughly 200 miles. So just trying to put it in context. Sorry for our Mississippi viewers. What is Nashville?
No clue.
Or Memphis? Memphis
to Nashville?
Yeah, that could be close, perhaps.
Could be. Yeah.
Washington. Marnie, I don't know where you live to Seattle.
Portland to Washington
So
border.
in the chat
I don't
for
know.
us, put what it would be equivalent where you live.
Yeah.
It'd be
What would
equivalent of
that
going
journey
here to
be for
back.
you?
Because it puts
Yeah.
into perspective here. Because
Yes.
we read this stuff. It's like, oh yeah, 200
And it
miles.
is so cool that God takes care of Elijah before he goes. He
Yeah,
actually
feeds
gives
him.
him 2 portions of rest. He says, you gotta eat and you gotta rest. And then he's like, you gotta do it one more
Because
time.
Here's the deal. When we have mental illnesses,
When we're
struggles.
struggling, yeah.
is that not right? Did I say it wrong there?
I
You
just
corrected
think,
me.
no, I just think, like for me, I've never, gone to the doctor for a mental illness, but I have struggled.
Right, I
And
think
so
that's humans.
I can identify with this. So
I
I want
just-
everyone to feel that they can
But I come from a
relate.
different school. I'm a bit old school in the new school world. Like, I think ADD is a real thing, and I got it, I'm sure. But I think that those things can be disciplined out. Not disciplined like spanking, but like disciplined in our lives. I think some of this mental illness thing, yes, there's sometimes you got to be medicated on it, but I think it's to reset and recalibrate so that you can be free of those medicines, so that you can learn. See, I think pastor hat on for all of you that want to say you're just being a pastor. No, I got things I worry about, right? Those things I struggle with. But the truth is I run to scriptures and I'm stupid enough to apply them to the core.
Not stupid enough.
But it would be in science.
But that's what it's like. That's what we miss. Even the Israelites were missing. I mean, that's what we're talking about. They miss that they have been provided for, that they are led by the one true God, that we have that ability to be led by the one true God, and we are given everything that we need, want, could ever fathom. Mm-hmm. And yet we still rely on our own strength, our own selfishness, our own what we think would provide, it's human nature.
But I think it's human nature for us to gravitate to the negative qualities of being a human. The guilty thoughts that lead into clinical depression, fear of the unknown, of failure, the fear of the future leads to clinically being diagnosed of anxiety, the fear of being in front of people, all these different things. These things at the extremes lead us to being clinically diagnosed with something. We have got to have an exit strategy when we have these thoughts. What are the scriptures you're going to read and believe? Like, I think what happens is people go, oh, that's pastorism to tell me to do that stuff. No, that's being a follower of Jesus. We read through scriptures. How many times does God say to Joshua, who's going to take a land of giants, he says, be confident, be courageous. Do not be afraid. I will be with you. Don't neglect my laws. Meditate them day and night. That's for all of us. If you're not meditating on the scriptures, of course you're going to struggle with mental illness because you got nothing to combat your wild thoughts. You got nothing. You're left to the demise of you thinking. And this has got to be some of those, what's your strategy? I know people that are here, you want to push back on this but I get it. I'm not telling you to quit your medicine. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm not your doctor. But maybe have a doctor conversation with, how do I wean myself off this so that I can trust God? You're going to find out that your faith will rise up and you can become because we see Elijah struggling with his mental illness so much so that he's weak. He's not eating. He's not taking care of himself. All he wants to do is die.
He's suicidal.
Yeah. And God's like, I'm not done with you, you moron. I'm not done with you. Get up, wash yourself off. Take care of yourself. I'll tell you when I'm done with you. Dust yourself off and get on a 200-mile journey. God didn't go, hey, from here on, I'm going to feed you grapes and somebody's going to fan you. No. God didn't go and nurture him back to health and go, oh, you poor little guy.
He also didn't promise that he was going to be the initiator of more powerful acts.
Right.
You know, where we see Elijah got a lot of his confidence. He just promised he would be with him.
So for you to think that your antidote through your isms of the mental struggles is, well, if I know God's real, then I will. We see that's not true here. Jesus himself says, hey, you're not even going to come believe I am who I am if I do more miracles. Exactly. You're asking for more miracles, but that won't actually change your heart. There's heaps of people in this world, I will never become a follower of Jesus because of this. Jesus himself could show up to them and they wouldn't become a follower of Jesus. We see that in the New Testament. That Jesus stayed in front of people and they still wouldn't give their life to Christ. That's just the way people are, unexplainable. But here's the deal. Today could be a wake-up call for you. What's your escape plan? What's your plan when you have those thoughts? When you are stricken with negativity or you're going through the grief process as Holly and I and her family and those closest to Collins, what's your plan? Yeah. If it's just to sit there and weep, that's not a plan.
Yeah.
It better be clicking on worship music. It better be clicking on scriptures that fill you up and empower you to be courageous, to be strong. That God will never leave you or forsake you. Doesn't mean God's going to make it all sunshine and roses. It just means as you walk through this crap, he's with you. And we walk through a lot of crap. I mean, sometimes we all sit there and, I've gone through this. Why do I struggle with this? It's because you are to be reminded it is not you alone. It is through the power, the divine power of God that gets you through, that sustains you. Have you genuinely pursued the divine power with your stuff? Or has it been a last-ditch effort to just scratch it a little bit instead of deep dive into the purpose of God and his divinity or his divine power to rescue you? Because if it's just an escape, let me medicate this, you're missing out on the divine appointments that they did not have in this day and age. And so we see it differently. They don't get to medicate them way out of this. It's either they had their own herbs and stuff they could do. But here we go. God shows up, taps on the shoulder. I'm not done with you. Eat, sleep, rest up, take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, everybody. Yeah. Hear me say that again. Take care of yourself. Be wise. Have friends around you. When people call you and check in on you and you're having a rough day, be honest.
Right. Share.
We're all humans. We got the dark days. We have the sad days. We do. Be honest. So he takes this 200-mile journey.
Yep.
Through terrain that is not flat. Like, stop picturing, like, just this easy trip. It's hard. It's deserty. It's like when you see pictures of Afghanistan through the news and all those things. Imagine going up and down mountains and not easy. 200 miles, walking in sandals, picking rocks. He gets to this mountain. And this is how we're going to wrap it up. You got I mean, you got to read this story because we can't do it all. He gets up to this mountain, and he's just kind of moping around in the mountain, right, Lil? Mm-hmm. Where's this found?
He probably moped that whole time. We are in 1 Kings 19, chapter 11. So
still, we're only one chapter from.
Yeah, one chapter. So God says, "Go out and stand before me on the mountain." And as Elijah stood there, the Lord passed by, and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. I think we have this. This is verse 11 and 12. It was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose, but the Lord was not in the wind.
Okay, hold on. Before we get that, doesn't God have a conversation with Elijah? Like, what in the world are you doing here?
Yeah, where are you?
What are you doing here?
What are you doing here? Yeah.
And his response is, I'm annoyed with your people because they're killing all the prophets and they are tearing down your altars and worshiping. He's like, I'm just over these people.
I'm the only one left.
Yeah. Oh, poor
and now they're trying to kill me too. Yeah. He says that in verse 10.
Here's the deal. You gotta hear this. Like, I think people are here. People probably logged off by now. Who knows? You need people like me in your life to tell you to get up and dust yourself off and go. And you need people that are gonna go with the sensitive side. You need both. God's just got me in your life and this whole conversation in your life today to speak to you through your device. Get up. Stop it. Stop medicating yourself to be dulled by life. You're missing it. Life is happening and you're not participating in it. And that's a sad fact. There are people in hospitals that want to participate in life, but they are diagnosed with something that's taking their life. And they would give anything to be able to pursue life.
Yeah.
Wake up. Get on being the man and the woman God created you to be. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry your life circumstances that drove you to feel about your life the way they do.
Yeah.
Move on. Let's get going, because Elijah's feeling bad about the plight in his life.
Right.
And he's finding himself complaining, God, no, I'm the only one. And God starts to say, because you started getting to it, I missed it. I either was thinking.
No.
But God's like, hey, you big baby. And I told you, I'm being like a jalapeno popper today. I love all of you. Some of you need to hear. You're just being a
But you are simply adopting what we're seeing God do for Elijah. We are seeing God care for him and not lecture him right away and feed him, right? And then as it goes on, Elijah says, I'm alone. And God kind of says, no, you're not. A few verses later, God actually says, there's 7,000 in Israel who are still following me. There are still people. You are not alone, Elijah. You have become a victim in this situation, and I am going to tell it to you straight. So God is both, and you are simply reflecting that.
Yeah, so
you are, for us, you are reflecting that character.
So get the facts.
Right.
Right? Like, what facts are you using? Are you using made-up facts that you're telling yourself the narrative? What a joke. You're your worst enemy. You lie to yourself all the time to make the narrative a reality. That's ridiculous. And here we have this guy telling himself some story that's not real.
He's the only one left.
It's a very victim-y thing to say. And I love that God put him in his place in a sense and said, no. Remember, we talked about God being a heart turner. God is saying, I turned those 7,000 back to me through what I accomplished. I turned their hearts. I have kept them. It's because of me. And Elijah's doing great things, but we always know it's God. It is God in the end. It is not us. It is him.
I love this. And I've been on one about this with Holly. I love that we have this picture of Elijah being able to be freely talk with God. Mm-hmm. He's having a free conversation. Hey, I'm the only one left. It gives us indications that our prayers don't need to be so programmed and so sophisticated.
That's right.
But I don't get the sense where Elijah's screaming the F word at God. It's been very popular lately for me to hear people, I've
had
blew
this
up on
with
God.
And I just told him how it was.
I told him off. It's like, wait, where's the divine respect for God? Mm-hmm. Where's the respect that we see through the Old Testament and the New Testament? That I am, hallowed be your name, God. Mm-hmm. I'm in the presence of divineness. A God that has the power to overcome all circumstances. So I will humble myself and respect you. I don't see Elijah, who feels threatened with his life, using any foul language to God. I don't get a sense that he's just trying to he's got a pity party. I think it's okay to have a pity party with God. I've had those before.
We definitely see that here.
Yeah, I think that's all okay. That's real.
Yeah, it's being real. That's
I think
right.
being real.
You want that in
But
a relationship.
To be able to say, I told God off, gives an indicator to yourself that you got some really dark spots in your heart, that someone that is so loving and kind and compassionate sent his only son to die on a cross, that you would speak to him like that. I would never speak to Holly like that, because I've said, I love you. God, I love you. I'm grateful. Why would I speak to him that way? Because he's got big shoulders? What? Where's the divine respect? Where's the respect that I'm in the presence of a God that can change my situation like that? I'm going to tell you how I feel, God. And where I'm frustrated, where I feel alone, and where I feel I failed, and where I feel like you've let me down, God. But I'm also going to do that to those people closest to me, but in respect. I'm never going to fling open a door in here and yell at Lily.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
And like, look at what Elijah was able to be real. And we're about to see what God did for him, or how he revealed himself to him. And Elijah didn't scream at God. And so it's like, we need to pick up some of these processes in our own relationship with God and be real, and then wait on him to reveal himself to us.
Yeah, I love where you said earlier, I think you said it, but he says it so many times. I've been zealous for you, God.
Yeah, he says it.
I've been on fire for you, God. And this is the payout. I do think we dupe ourselves at thinking if we are on fire for God and do great things, that means God has to protect us and always do kind things. Here's the deal. Most of the prophets and most of the disciples in Jesus' day died like martyrs' death. I think John's the only one of the 11 that weren't martyred.
Yeah.
Right? And I say 11 because Judas takes his life.
Yep.
So, no, you can do great things for God does not mean you have a peaceful life. And so we have him having a little bit of pity party for himself, which is fine. Have your pity party, brush yourself off, and get moving. I think one of the things I learned about with Collins, he taught me all the time, even the way I'm walking through processing his life and the sadness of never fishing with him or having another conversation to ponder, is that he told me all the time, stop being a whiner.
Yeah.
We serve a big God.
Yeah.
Stop. Get going. Get on to what God's asked you to do. And that's how Collins lived. I never heard that guy whine about his plight in life. Even at the end of his life, when he got diagnosed, you never heard him whine about, oh, poor me. He asked some questions that are normal questions you ask at the end of your life, but nothing to question God's divinity and his power and his might.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
But he constantly was like, how do I honor God in this phase of life? How do you honor God in this season in your life? And so, because we got to wrap this thing up, God calls him, go to the edge of the mountain.
Yep.
And this is such a beautiful picture. We don't have felt board
amazing.
characters for this.
Yeah.
What?
No, and it says in verse 11, the Lord passed by and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain, but the Lord...
But hold on, will you read 11? Did you read verse 11?
He said, go out and stand before me.
I just feel like...
And I'm wondering, because it says before that he was in a cave. I'm wondering if God is saying, come out.
Get out of your mess.
Get out. I'm about to do something. Come on,
You want
go.
an antidote to your mental issues? Get your butt outside.
Getting outside is good.
Outside is like so many times when you read through the Bible, so many of these men and women that are having issues, God says, get outside your tent. He says that to Abraham or Moses. I can't remember. Get outside and look up.
Yep.
Getting outside is a reset. We are sucked inside because we're on our devices all the time. Even when we get outside, we're on our devices. It's the enemy's plight to take us away from connecting to God's creation, because we're, after all, created from the dirt. And so when we get out there, we're connecting with God's creation. We can see God's beauty in it. Get your butt outside. Because here's Elijah being called to get outside, because God says, and I just want to, we read it like kind of how Lily did. The Lord,
go out and stand there. Me.
The Lord, doesn't he say, because I'm going to pass by?
It says the Lord passed by.
Oh,
so God calls him, go out and stand before me on the mountain, and then he starts to move. He starts to do stuff.
Okay.
But
then the Lord passed by.
But it says, but the Lord was not in the wind. This windstorm came, but the Lord was not in the wind. So you kind of wonder, was Elijah seeking him out in what God was doing physically on the earth? And then it says, and the wind was after the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. It's specifying this for a reason. And after the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And read this with me if we can put it on the screen. It says, and after the fire, there was the sound of a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak, and he went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And so I know Elijah might have been looking for God in the wind and looking for God in the earthquake and looking for God in the fire. And then all that noise that you could imagine came with those things. We can imagine that. We can fathom that. All that noise dissipated, and Elijah hears God in a gentle whisper. Other translations say a still small voice, or the sound of a gentle blowing, a thin, gentle whisper. God revealed himself quietly to Elijah. I mean, how amazing is that? That I just wonder what that whisper, if it had words, maybe it said, I'm still with you. I'm here. I'm still working. I've seen your zealous spirit, right? And I am seeing so much of God's character in this story and going, wow, has he been that in my life? And making me pray, God, I don't want an answer to my prayers. I don't want an answer to what to do. I just want your whisper. I just want your presence in my life. And Elijah picks back up, and the story moves on, and he continues his purpose until it's fulfilled, and he doesn't die. He's taken up to heaven. It's amazing. You can see that in 2 Kings chapter 1. And I encourage you to go read it because, man, what a story, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Scott, I can't thank you enough for assigning me this. And I remember being like, you want me to teach? Okay, I got a lot of studying to do, and you gave me ample time, which was great. But like, I just really like the one thing I'm taking out of this is God can work with a whole lot. And sometimes I feel like I bring so much to God. Like I'm praying about purpose stuff.
When you say so much baggage,
I'm
right?
bringing a lot to him, and my prayers are never that consistent. And which means I'm praying a lot, right? I'm trying to be in relationship with God, but like sometimes I feel like I'm a lot. I'm bringing a lot to the table, and God, you got a lot of work. You got a lot to work with here. And what I see in this story is that God can work with a lot.
But as much as you're saying, because it's both. You're saying, God, you got a lot to work on in me to fix me.
Yeah.
But you also bring a lot of talents and abilities to spread the gospel, and the enemy doesn't want you to do those great works, so he wants you fixed on the things you need to fix.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of getting busy doing the work of God. And really one of the greatest antidotes to all of this is to get busy building the kingdom of God. Mm-hmm. It's truly that. You want the solution to this is get busy building the kingdom of God. And when these things creep in, reach out to somebody. When you get the phone call, somebody texts you, email, oh man, I'm not forgotten. That should be for all of us that just when you think of somebody, text them. I just cannot stress that enough. That's God usually, that individual needs a good, you know how many times I get that? Oh, Scott, your text was so timely. I had no idea. I hadn't spoken to him in months. And then I just say, hey, I love you. I use birthdays a lot to do that. Where it's like, hey, their birthday, I know I'm connected. I'm going to encourage them because I want my words to encourage and not discourage. But we get to this be still bit, and it's like, well, how do we do that? Because in our culture, it's go, go, go.
Yeah,
it's interesting that when you go through the creation of the computer or machines, every time man has come up with some innovative way to do work, baked in there has been a promise that's never come to fruition. We will work less and have more free time.
Right.
But actually what's happened is these things have created us to where we depend on them and we work more than we were before that. It's just interesting. We become slaves to machines and computers and stock markets, and we're more and more eroding these things that God's like, don't depend on these things.
Yeah.
But every time these things come along, it's robbing us from being still and being quiet.
Exactly.
We don't have a culture where we can do those things, but God says 8 times through the Bible, be still. To be still isn't just to sit quiet and like, I just need to get a quiet room and just, no. Be still is to meditate on God and his characteristics. It's not just to be quiet. It's to be focused on God and his qualities. Is to train your mind to think about God and God alone. Because if you just sit there, there's no off button to our brains. There's no idle. When I ask my kids, what are you thinking about? Nothing. I want to bop them over the head because it's a lie. You're
Your
thinking
mind is somewhere.
Yeah, you're thinking something.
Yeah.
You just don't know it. So to cease striving is another way to say. So is to surrender to God. To trust his control, ultimately leading to a deeper understanding and experience of God's presence and power. It's to stop building your kingdom. Be still. Maybe it's shut everything off in your car. Yeah. Give moments for yourself to hear the quietness. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a walk with no phone. And I know what you're going to say. If I don't have a phone, what if I fall and I can't call somebody? Are you kidding me?
Elijah went through that 200 miles,
Yeah,
40 day without a phone.
Yeah, being still is that understanding I trust. And so, again, I hear you. I hope you hear everything today. I'm kind of putting the spiciness to the Lily portions of this.
It was great. Today, it was awesome.
Because there's just too much in here to not. And we've gone, according to our clock, it's an hour and 46 minutes. Who knows what it gets edited down to? Just put it on there and people can just listen to this in portions.
It's been really good. So thank you guys.
So,
and it's enough set up for you to go read it yourself to gather more.
There's so
I
much
would
more.
read it.
so much
I would
more
read it,
into
guys.
this.
It's so good.
It's 2 chapters.
It's probably going to become one of my favorite stories.
Right? We just discussed for an hour and 46 minutes.
2 chapters.
2 chapters.
And so much of God's character. Like, you want to get to know God. You want to get to know your creator.
And the reason I gave it to
right
Lil, she's pregnant. She just found out today what they're having. I'm going to tell you this.
Don't say anything.
I got to.
it's okay.
I have to. I have to say something.
What is he going to say?
It's either a boy or a girl.
But yes, you probably had some intentionality there.
It's because you're just expressing the thoughts that every first time mom has.
I need to hear that still small voice. And I did. I got to the point where I was like, because this was before today specifically that we're filming this, I got to find out the gender, but I also got to see the heartbeat again. And those were some of those, what felt like loud earthquakes were coming, intrusive thoughts in my brain of the bad things that could happen. And as I'm reading this, I'm like, I don't even need to know what's going on. I just want to whisper. I just want to be closer to you. And it's propelled me into loving God more. And I'm very grateful.
So it was a twofold bit for her to learn this, teach it, because I think there's so much power. So wherever you are on your mental health journey, we are not shaming you in anything. God's just put us in this moment in your life today to get you to dust your pants off. Now, some of you that are really, you are defined by, you have a journey. And you're going to have days that it's really easy and days it's really hard. And you're going to have to re-listen to this. And you have to have your exit strategy and those things. It's possible. You're capable of doing this. God's put it in you. Mm-hmm. But this will be on your journey to have stories where you get to have an impact in the God kingdom. That doesn't mean somebody runs with all of this like, oh, so you mean if I medicate myself, can't be used? No, that's not what I'm saying. Stop putting words in my mouth. I'm just trying to say, man, can you get to where God speaks on these things that help you? I think those things can help us get back. It's a great reset. I think a lot of times those medicines are used for a short amount of time to get us reset. Not depend on. We're supposed to depend on God and God alone.
Good.
I know it's a sensitive topic. We love all of you. Mm-hmm. Let me pray for you and everybody. I hope you got something out of this Sunday school lesson today. Jesus, for everyone that is listening, may you speak boldly to us, but in the whisper. It's funny to pray that way right after. God, speak boldly, shout at us, but in a whisper. May we hear your whisper. Mm. May we slow down enough to know what you're asking us to do. For those that are in the camp of the mental side of things, that they're really struggling, man, today may it be a good day. Maybe the day that our confidence goes up a notch and they're going to meet with their counselor, their therapist, and their doctor and talk about, hey, what's it look like for me to wean myself off this? Or just may they begin to have a journey in this and find scriptures that will give them confidence and boldness to walk through these things, God. We know you are a great big God. And you have purposes for every last human in this. May we not be lukewarm. May we be hot. May we be on fire for you. That we would burn with passion to spread the gospel. Passion to be fully in serving you. Jesus, thank you for being our free gift to accept, to become in or have a relationship with the Creator God, your Father. Thank you for Lily's ability to study and her passion for this. Continue to, for her and Jordan, continue to keep that baby safe in there, that he or she would be a man or woman after your own heart, God. We absolutely love you. Thank you that we get to spread your gospel digitally. In your name, amen.
Amen.
You know, everybody's hearing me talk about that little baby in your womb. They go, well, he's starting with he all the time, so it's got to put it in the chat. We'll find out.